business. It's business time. Hang tight, we're gonna get into the business right here in a couple minutes. Baby, baby. It's business. It's business time. All right, we are here at week 23 of It's Business Time with Jen Evans of Jennifer Lillian Wellness.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's kind of a cool story how we met, very much in the kind of networking,
Yes.
Delaware business world.
Here, right? In this very space.
In
So
this
that's
very
fun.
space. Yeah, I'm very excited to get to that part and everything. Before we get rolling, I do always like to give a quick shout out to Stitch House for having us. They have 12 local beers on tap. They're right here on Market Street. This week I am doing their gooseberry sour. And again, thank you, Stitch House. And with that, we are rolling. So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, of course.
You are the first life coach that we've had. I'm very
Awesome.
excited about this because in all the things that business requires, right? A level of stability, calmness, mental health
Yes.
is one of those that probably isn't talked about as much as it should be. You
Sure.
know, when you're going down the Gary V's of the world, he's like, yeah, wake up at 4 a.m. and then work nonstop until 11 p.m. And
That's
some people
not how I roll.
Right, yeah, some people are built that way. I think most people are not.
Right.
And so I'm sure you have a lot we can get to, but I do like to kind of start at the beginning.
Yeah. It's a good place to start.
So what were you doing before you decided to kind of branch out, start your own
Yeah.
company, move into this space, and kind of like how did your Jennifer Lillian Wellness kind of lead into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I think that it really started about 15 years ago.
Okay.
Is where I would say I would begin when I was trying to get pregnant with my first son.
Okay.
That's where I really thought about living an intentional life and not just kind of going through the motions.
Right.
So I was really focused on my health, my fitness, and like who I wanted to be in the world as a mom. And then, ironically, I kind of lost myself in motherhood, right?
Right.
Like that became my whole identity. It was secondary to my career, to my marriage, or all those things became secondary,
Right, yeah.
right? And then COVID happened, and the world kind of slowed down, and I took some time to look inward, right? And kind of really question, like, what do I want? I've achieved all these things, like from the outside, my life looks pretty great,
Right.
but it felt like something was missing,
Okay,
right? And
yeah.
so it kind of went from a personal journey, a personal evolution, to then this passion to help other people like live their best lives
Right.
and live intentionally and kind of turn off the autopilot and like get back in the driver's seat.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's such a transition to go from working on yourself to helping others.
Yeah.
Was there a moment that like you said, "Wow, I want to share this with people," or maybe you were working with someone and a spark? Was there like a
Yeah. So I will say, to back up a little bit, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 17 plus years. So I've always been in the helping space,
absolutely.
right? But this was different, right? It was much more personal, and just really having a lot of transformation personally in my relationships, just kind of how I showed up in the world, going from someone that always kind of complained about everything and like always
that way.
had kind of this like baseline stress level, to like really feeling this sense of peace and calm and just clarity and like control that then said to me, I have to share this, right? I have to empower other people that when we really can get in touch with our minds, right, and become aware of what we're thinking and how that drives how we feel, which then drives how we act, right, all of a sudden other people and other circumstances can continue to happen, right? Life is always going to be happening,
Right, yeah.
but we get to choose how we show up.
Yeah.
And so one of my greatest mentors is Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School.
Okay.
So that was probably the turning point for me when I got introduced to that world.
Okay.
And I went to a live conference that she was having.
Oh, neat.
And I was like I had already been kind of dabbling, but that's when I was like, I can do this. I know that like my life experience can help others,
right.
and let's just go for it.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of marrying like some of the natural tendencies. You know, the nursing obviously is a very caring and nurturing field with like this once in a lifetime event where you get a chance to take a step back and see where you want to go next.
Yeah.
And reference it. So you started the company like 2020 about?
So that was kind of when I really started on my like really intentional personal journey, kind of peeling back all the layers and looking at all the things and really thinking about like, what do I want my future to look like?
Okay.
I officially like launched my business in 2022, like November of 2022.
Gotcha.
So just over a year. So it's still,
it's still new, and I love that. I do want to make sure to get the King Creative shout out here early in the conversation.
Yes.
So that's a great segue into. So we met probably 5-6 months ago at one of the second Tuesdays. Second Tuesdays.
Third.
I'm a third Tuesdays. Thank you. Third Tuesdays. Third Tuesdays. Right here at Stitch House. So every third Tuesday. Christopher Bruce and King Creative host a small business networking event.
Along with Delaware Black Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce. It's the Business First, right? If they're searching it.
Yes.
I'll put the information here up above in the editing room. But yeah, so I knew that I had this event coming up. I was going to be doing a small business thing every Wednesday. And here is Christopher Bruce doing this great networking event once a month. So I started attending these. And then we traded business cards and did all that.
Did the networking thing,
the networking thing, right. And I have a little stack of, now it's a big stack of business cards at home. And when I'm going to book these, I'll like play them like playing cards. I'll be like, because I don't want like, the same, I don't want like 5 construction businesses all in a row. I want to make sure that it's got a nice kind of diversity to the types of people and the types of businesses. And so yours came up, and I was just like, in a lot of ways, and this is going to sound like a little bit like preachy, but in a lot of ways, having your head right is the core, of growing a business, because any small business owner will tell you it is incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, and this is true in business and in life in general, we make life much harder than it has to be, right? By really identifying with our thoughts and letting them run the show, versus what I teach my clients to do is see their thoughts as optional stories.
Right. I love that.
They're beliefs, and if those beliefs aren't serving you, let's work to change them. Yeah. But it has to start with that awareness.
Yeah. Wow. I do like these conversations to be about my guest. And I almost launched into this a few sentences ago. Now I have to tell you a very, very small story.
Tell me a story.
But when you said, before, I was like kind of, I don't remember your exact wording.
Autopilot?
In a negativity or imagining.
Complaining a lot,
right? And I look at my 20s, and I realize what I was doing was I was assuming that other people had bad feelings about me, right? And then I was responding to them having bad feelings about me.
Which then created negative feelings.
Yeah, a defensiveness.
Sure.
Like, why are you hating on me? Why are you trying to? And meanwhile, like, I look back on that, and the look on their face is like a confusion.
Right.
Look.
They're like, what?
But at the time, I thought the furrowed brow was.
I hate you.
Yeah, like a verification. And I realized I was literally getting upset.
Ahead of time.
Yeah, about them being upset with me when they weren't. None of that was happening.
Right.
None of that was happening.
Right.
And it took a period of loneliness. This is a whole long story, but I lived all by myself on the side of a mountain for 6 months.
Okay.
And during that period, I realized that I was experiencing almost the same level of discomfort and attacks, and
With nobody there.
with no one
Right.
present. And that was the self-awareness that,
Sure.
and I was 35. Like the first 35 years of my life, I thought everyone was against me.
Yeah. Well, and we do that, right?
Yeah.
Our brains, and I think it's really important to normalize that and
Yeah.
to validate that, like, we all do it.
Yeah.
And it's part of our evolution. It's
Yeah.
how our brains keep us safe, right?
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
survival mechanism
Right.
that is designed to, like, keep us in our safe little bubble.
Yeah.
If we keep everybody out, if we put up those walls first, then
Yep.
like nobody can hurt us, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
That's it. You nailed it.
And so just to be able to recognize that, and like what I used to do, right? Because I think we're all our own toughest critic, is I
Yeah.
would beat myself up.
Yeah.
Like, why are you like this? And
Yeah.
it's like, that's not serving me. So when I can
Right.
learn to have acceptance,
Yeah.
right? Then from that place of acceptance and love, then I can make change, right?
Yeah.
I can be intentional,
Yeah.
but you have to be open.
Yeah,
right?
I love that. The awareness. So I use my taking out the recycling as like a baseline.
Okay.
Right? And sometimes it'll start to overflow.
Sure.
Right? And I'll still, even to this day, beat myself up a little. Come on, get your stuff together. And then I'll do that. Get your stuff. Take this out. You know, you got a million
How hard
things.
is it?
This takes a minute.
Right.
And in that time of beating myself up, I'll catch myself and I'll say, no, you've been busy. You've got a
Sure.
lot of stuff. This is a low priority task. Relax.
Right.
Ease up on yourself.
Yeah.
And guess what happens immediately after I ease up? Recycling gets taken
Yeah.
out. You know?
Yeah.
And I use that as obviously, the bigger the family, the bigger the business, the more weight on your shoulder, those small tasks become more and more intense, which is a very clumsy segue into when you are working with clients. So I noticed that you do a couple different services. The one-on-one.
Is my primary focus.
That's your primary
Yeah.
focus. And when you're working with them, what's like, can you give me like a little, like a screenshot or a walkthrough of, is there a discovery process and then you make a plan? Can you give me a little bit of
Sure.
like a sample of what someone might experience working with you?
Yeah. So I do, I think a discovery process is a valid, I do it as a consultation, right? A free consultation to kind of really get an idea of where are you, right? And I look at the person as a whole. So like somebody might come to me saying, I want to grow my business.
Right.
But we're going to look at everything. We're going to look
Right.
at your physical health, your mental health, your
Yeah.
emotional health, your relational health, your financial health, right? We're going to look at the full picture.
Right.
Because how you do one thing is how you do everything,
Right.
right? So I'm going to look for themes, right? Like, are you a perfectionist? Are you super judgmental of yourself?
Yeah.
Like, all these little things. Do you have a hard time setting boundaries? Like,
Right.
what are the common threads throughout that then we're going to choose one thing, right?
Right.
We're going to focus on one thing at a time because
Yeah.
I think that's where
love
people
that.
set themselves up for failure is they try and do too much at once.
Focus on one thing at a time.
One thing at a time, right? Because again, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So we make this small change over here, and then the ripple effects, it bleeds into everything else.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do you do group discounts for musicians and artists?
I mean, we could talk about this.
I'm just kidding.
We could work out a
'cause
deal.
I'm including myself in this, so I hope none of my friends feel attacked. But lay it all out, but really focus on
Yeah.
one thing and allow that one thing to kind of bloom into the others
Yes.
is something that I think a lot of creatives struggle with a lot.
Sure. Well,
you know?
because you have all these great ideas, right? And so
Yeah.
you want to do it all.
Right.
And like, I get it.
And-
I get it.
Yeah,
But
and we never know which one is going to be the
Right.
one that launches.
Right.
You know.
And that's a big part for me is really helping my clients to make powerful decisions, right? We let fear, we let doubt, we let like all these questions stop us. And so really learning to like make one decision that you feel really good about and then make another, right? And trust that if it doesn't work out the way that you think it's going to, that like you believe in your ability to figure it out, right? But
Yeah.
just one thing at a time.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. The mental organization speaks to me
Yeah.
a lot. Because, I mean, if I could go back to my 20s and sit down and have a conversation with myself, it really would be like stop trying to do everything poorly. Just do one thing well.
Well, yeah.
You know, and I'm really like I'm on the beginning of that path right now. Just the last, like, you know, I'm 41. 35 is really where I said, you are your own worst enemy. You're getting in your way.
Sure.
So I feel in a lot of ways emotionally like maybe a 25-year-old, right? It's just like I just kind of.
It's like this rebirth.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really was. Okay, so you do the discovery, or the one-on-one, the consultation.
Yep.
You figure out a couple things, and then this is an ongoing process, or you create like a plan for them? What's like the average check-in? Are they checking in every week
Yep.
or every month, or?
So I do weekly calls
Okay.
for an hour. They're about
Okay.
an hour long. And, you know, it's funny. I say we focus on one thing, and
Right.
we do, but it's very fluid,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of
it's like
course.
life is happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And really what I'm doing is equipping you with the tools
Yeah.
to ride the waves
Right.
of life,
Right.
right?
Gotcha.
That change is a constant.
Yep.
And so it really is about building your confidence, finding that inner calm and peace, right? And having clarity on like what is most important, right? But being fluid,
Yeah.
recognizing that as things change, like your priorities change.
Right,
So I
right.
personally I still, my
Yeah.
default is like black and white, all or nothing,
Right.
It's like I'm in or I'm out. And just accepting that like you can be all in on this,
Right.
but just because that, you know, served you then,
Right.
we still need to be constantly reevaluating and checking back in and
Yep.
seeing like, does this still serve me? Like
Yeah.
I'll just use like health and fitness as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like getting up at 5 a.m. and working out and following a specific nutrition plan. It worked really well
Right.
until it doesn't,
Right,
And
yeah.
being able to like say, okay, this worked. It's not working anymore.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna shift based on my core values, right? What's
Yeah.
most important to me
Yeah.
at this season of life?
I get that. I get that. I have a controversial question for you. To-do lists, yay
okay.
or nay?
I love a to-do list, but with purpose,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not a to-do list that is just this like never-ending
Yeah.
stream of things that then you get to use to like beat yourself up at the end
Yep.
of the day because look at all the things I didn't do.
Didn't do, yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So I love an intentional to-do
Yeah.
list that helps, right? Because that gives you focus,
Yep.
right? Like, especially if you're super creative and have all these ideas, like,
Right.
okay, but what are you focused on right now?
Yeah.
Here's my to-do list. And then it also builds that confidence that like, look, I did what I set out
Yeah.
to do.
And I think the reason I ask is because, you know, a lot of people are one way or another on it. And I look at that as kind of like it's personality types. Like those
Sure.
who don't beat themselves up a lot, I
Right.
think to-do lists are fine for. I used to have a big whiteboard in my kitchen with all the things I want to do.
Right.
Everything from, you know, taxes and doctor's appointments
Sure.
to the song I'm trying to finish, you know, everything priority. And then I realized, like you said, is like the dopamine that I get from checking it off
Right.
wasn't greater than the
Cortisol.
yeah
or who
cortisol
knows,
thing.
right.
I'm like, than the negative feelings I was
Yeah.
getting from seeing things. And I was writing in the expo markers, right? And I noticed that if I can rub it with my thumb, it hasn't been there very long. But if it's dried on the board,
You're like,
that,
ooh.
like it's like a dagger in my heart. I'm like, oh my gosh, when are you gonna? So one of the things that's been on my to-do list for 8 months now is re-pour the concrete on the stairs going down into my basement. It's something I know how to do.
Sure.
It's
Can
if
you
I
come
do it
do mine?
yeah, if I do it myself, it's $50. If I hire someone else, it'll be $500.
Right.
It's one of those, and like I went the whole winter looking at that thing on the to-do list, and like it hurt.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, I
know.
can't smudge that one up.
I can't smudge that one out, and you know it's still on the to-do list. I'm hoping to get to it as soon as the weather kind of breaks here, but. That's why I asked, is it's like kind of finding that balance between holding yourself accountable versus beating yourself up.
I think the big thing with any tool, right, is that to not use it against yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because to your point, there are 1,000, 1,000,000 different opinions about what's right.
Right.
And so I always tell my clients, I don't know what's best for you, only you know what's best for you.
Right.
I'm here to help you consider different perspectives, to look at things differently, to think differently, to behave differently in a way that feels good for you. Right? I don't know.
Right.
We get to discover that together.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's a checkpoint, it's a soundboard, right? It's just, again, to offer that new perspective and just a different way to think, to challenge your thoughts. A lot of times we take our thoughts as facts, right? And we like hold on, especially if it's a belief that you've held for a long time, right? It just feels like your identity. But it's like, is that serving you? If it's not, let's like unpack it. Let's see, what are you making it mean, right? And kind of open that up and again put you back in the driver's seat.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like I'm getting a lot of free information from but no, you definitely you have an awareness about you that I can tell could be very, very helpful for people. Let me jump. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say just one more thing about the to-do
absolutely.
list.
Yeah.
So I love what I call a thought download or a brain dump, where you just write down everything, right? Especially if you're someone that feels overwhelmed or stressed a lot, right? Get it out of your head and onto paper.
Yep.
But then we don't try and do all those things. We just see them, and then you have to prioritize, right? Then you get to decide.
Prioritize.
This can wait until the spring, because it's not a winter appropriate project, right? And I don't have to beat
It's
myself
true. I should have taken it off the list for the winter. I should have. Yeah.
But so like that, then that's where it becomes intentional, right? It's not just a to-do list, just to create a to-do list.
Right.
It's like, let me get all this stuff out so I can see, because when we try to play these games in our minds, we just spin, right?
Yep.
It's like you're on the hamster wheel and you're just going and going and not getting anywhere. So get it out and then prioritize. And like top 3 priorities. 10 is not a priority list. It's a chaotic, you know?
Yeah. So I actually even got to the point where I was writing a 1 to 10 number next to
like
all of them so that I could rank and then break them up so that I'd only have a small list at my desk where I work and not, because I don't want to look at the basement door while I'm trying to focus. It's irrelevant to that stuff. And one that you might find kind of, because I'm in marketing, I do a lot of social media, right? So I had to get into TikTok at some point, learn about it. TikTok is exceptionally, it's like if Facebook and that's like, you know, weed and beer, TikTok is heroin, you know. It is just exceptionally good at grabbing your attention.
Sucking you right in.
And not just, and it doesn't feel like junk too. If you curate your feed, you know, it's like woodworking,
you're like,
cooking,
yes, these are all the things.
Yeah, but what I think kills you is the 2 minutes. 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, 2 minutes. And so I made a deal with myself. If I'm going to do TikTok, I can't just lie there and do it. I have to be active around so I'll like, you know, put it while I'm like cleaning the dishes or something.
See, there you go.
And I'm just using that as an example of like, you know, it's not good. What's good is not doing it at all, right? But it's
you
also
get to decide. Right. And that's
like
the big thing is like you get to decide. There are no right or wrong or like it's what feels best to you. What what's helping you move closer to your goals
Yeah.
versus like, what are you doing that's what I call like buffering, where
Right,
like
right.
you're just getting that
Yeah.
dopamine hit, right? You're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
getting that dopamine hit rather than doing what you know
Yeah.
you should be doing
Right.
to move forward.
Well, I can tell you already, just energy-wise, I'm already feeling calmer and more in control.
Well, that's good.
So before I lose you, though, I do want to go back to the business side
Yes.
of what you're doing a little bit.
Absolutely.
This is kind of the service side. The business side-wise, one question I always like to ask startup, like smaller
Yeah.
businesses, is like, was there a period where things didn't go well? Like maybe you had a client that made you question everything.
Yeah.
Maybe you went a couple weeks without anyone booking it. You know,
Yep.
so was there a period where you said to yourself, "I'm on the wrong path"? And then kind of what did you do to get back on track?
Sure. So I think anyone that's looking to like enter this space know that imposter syndrome is always going to be there.
Oh yeah,
Right? It never goes away.
I have it right now.
Right? Like I'm always like, okay, when are they gonna like tap me on the shoulder and be
Right.
like, I don't know who you think you are,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
you don't deserve to be sitting here
Yeah,
right now,
yeah, yeah.
right? So just accepting that,
Right.
and like again, for me and like for coaches, I think it's really important to be a product of your product, right?
Right.
To not get complacent in like, well, I know. I know these things, so like I don't need that help. Like coaches need coaches, like dentists need dentists, right?
Right,
Like we
right.
all need to be willing to ask for help, stay curious, and like stay open and use the tools. So like I believe in always living in breakthrough. So if I'm feeling
Can you describe what's that mean? Always living in breakthrough.
so always having some sort of transformation, right? Always
Okay,
be
okay.
working on something. I find that when I really feel that like imposter syndrome or that just really self-criticism where I feel like I shouldn't be doing this, what am I thinking? It's because I'm not doing the work myself, right?
Right.
I've gotten like kind of lazy.
Yeah.
And not to say like that you always have to be hustling. That's
Right,
not what
right.
I'm talking about
Right.
at all. But like, I'm no longer being intentional,
Yeah.
right? I've kind of slipped back into autopilot. I'm just going through the motions, checking the boxes, doing things just because somebody said I should versus checking in with like, is this the best thing for me? They're going to walk right through.
Yeah, I did a lot of. No, that makes a lot of sense. I did a lot of. I watched a lot of podcasts. You know, growing the last business I was in, I watched a lot of podcasts that like very successful people, multimillionaires, did a lot of research on what it takes to become a successful person, and this grind culture, this idea that you always have to be working all the
Yeah.
time. Never felt right to me,
No.
but I did beat myself up a lot. Why don't I like this? Why don't I like this idea? But this was 6 years ago now that I started to think about it. And over that time, and no disrespect to anybody out there who's into grind culture, but I am going to disrespect it. But over that time, I was never jealous of people who were doing that.
No,
I was never jealous of the money they had,
sure.
of the experiences they had. Like, even if they went to Mykonos, Greece, on a yacht, I'm like, yeah, well, they're probably yelling at people there, too.
Right.
You know, they're probably miserable in the most beautiful place, or
Sure.
one of the most beautiful places. Can't disrespect Maine in August. No, I found I was never jealous of them.
Yeah.
Whereas the people who had a good work-life balance, I was very jealous of. You know, the
Sure.
people whose families loved being around them, whose friends loved being around them. I don't care how much money they had in their bank account. I was always jealous of them, and it was hard to keep like a beacon, like wanting to go up that hill towards greatness, and not like the ones who were doing it this way, but also, you know, the ones who weren't doing anything at all weren't
Right.
getting there either. And so, yeah, it's always a balance, I guess, there.
Well, and I think it's important, right, again, that we define our own greatness.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So, like, what is greatness? What does success look like to you
Right.
versus to me? And I agree, like, success to me is not having all the money in the world, but hating your life.
Right.
Right? Like that
Or
is
being
not
hated
success.
by people you love.
Right, exactly. I would much rather, have a modest income and be actually engaged and enjoying my life.
Right.
And that's not to say that, I'm not working hard.
Right.
But just having boundaries and, choosing, again, how I want to show up. One of my favorite sayings is like, if you can't be happy here, you won't be happy there. Right? So learning how, even while you're striving and dreaming and achieving, learning how to just appreciate the moment that you're in. Because this moment right here is the only moment. Right?
Yeah. Well said. All right, so I do want to keep these digestible,
Yes.
around 20 minutes. And I feel a little bit guilty, like all the other people I have on this, we talk about their business. I don't actually have them bring the product and give the product to people at home.
It's
I feel like you're
hard to not, like, because the business is this, right? This is what I do with my clients, is we have conversations.
I get that,
Right? So it's like, what you want to know about, like, me posting on Instagram? And
Right,
like, who cares? Like, that's not...
So how many times a week do you post in order to get the maximum return?
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that
let's
out.
do one more business thing, and then we'll do like a proper commercial and whatnot. What was the most surprising client you've had? Has there any been? And you don't have to name them, of course,
Sure,
but
obviously.
has there any? Has
That would be very unprofessional.
Okay, fair. But and you can talk about marketing, like how they found you.
Yeah.
Talk about someone you never would have imagined wanted that type of service.
Sure.
But just, maybe if one pops out.
So it's probably actually the same person that, like, I would have. That's not who I think of as my, like, demographic.
Okay.
And also, I'm like, can more people just find me this way?
Yeah.
So I had a client. I'm in a couple Facebook groups, right? And they allow you to post, like, once a week or that, something about your business.
Right.
And so I did.
Right.
Just like, hey, I'm a life coach. I can help you.
Right.
And he reached out to me, like, totally random. He was like, are you still accepting clients? I've worked with a life coach before. I want to get started again. And I was like, great. He was probably the best client I've ever had. He was, like, really into it. But when I think about, like, who do I help?
Right.
I wasn't thinking of him.
Right. Right.
And we talked a lot about business growth, and I'm not a business coach, but I'm a mindset coach, right? And it's like, how do you see yourself? Like, what is the identity that you want? And then how are your choices, are your actions aligned with your values and how you show up? So he was just surprising because I'm like, I'm not a business coach. But really it's all the same, right?
Yeah.
It's a matter of how I package it. But it's all the same.
And so that was through a Facebook group.
A Facebook group, yeah.
So you found him through
So he found me through like a random post.
He found you through
a
random post on Facebook.
And so I just keep posting, and I'm like, maybe I'll find more people that.
So there's a nice reminder, right? Use all the free marketing you have available, because you never know who's going to stumble across those. I know when I started this, I was in all the Delaware business groups, all this stuff. Honestly, I have let that fall. I was posting every week for the first month or two. But it's a lot of work just doing the free stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember back in the day, like Craigslist marketing, right? All of that was free. I used to put ads up for everything I was doing all the time. And yeah, you never know who's going to find you, why. Can you share any detail without giving them away about why it was surprising that he used your services?
I think just, and this probably is my, like, prejudice, but that men don't as willingly, in my experience, like,
and mine too,
ask for help, right? And, like, certainly not emotional help to recognize like that, I just don't feel great, that like my life is good, right? Everything's good, but I feel not. And so I think really it was mostly the gender that was surprising to me.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that would
Yeah.
probably be my most surprising. And then in terms of, I had a client quit on me where she was just like, you're great, but this isn't working. And
Right.
that takes
Oh yeah.
it was hard for me to recover from that,
Yeah.
but I always have to remind myself, I want to work with people that want to work with me.
Totally,
Right?
totally.
I never
Yeah.
want to be dragging somebody along and
Yeah.
they have to want to be there because the work that we're doing is so personal, right? So if you don't really want it,
Yeah.
like
And you never know what they're going through too. They might
Sure.
have someone in their life criticizing them for doing it. They might have someone who's about to start a similar thing. You
Sure.
know, that's one of the hardest things in my sales period when people would say everything lines up. The company's right, the product's
Right,
right,
and
they
you're
love
like,
me, everything lines up, and they say no.
right.
And you're just kind of sitting there like, is it because of my haircut?
Sure.
Do I smell?
Right,
you're just,
what's the missing link?
yeah, there's nothing I can't understand. You're getting a lot out of this.
Sure.
It's affordable. It's all the things line up, but ultimately it's I think that's one of the hardest things about small business and being so close to your clientele is
To not take it personally.
yeah, to not take
Yeah.
it personally.
Yeah, it definitely, I think, one of my mentors, she always says, if you're thinking about them, you'll feel good.
Right.
If you're thinking about yourself,
There you go.
right, then it doesn't feel good. So
Yeah.
it's always kind of, if I'm feeling off, then I realize I'm thinking about myself and I need to
Right.
step back into service.
Yeah.
if that
I love
makes
that.
sense.
Well, the best compliment I can give you is it feels like you've been doing this for a lot longer than you've been doing this.
Well, like I said, life
It seemed-
experience
yeah,
matters,
I was
right?
going to say, it seems to come very natural to you. And yeah, and I think you're definitely in the right space for
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you.
So before we go,
Yeah.
before we lose you, I want to make sure everybody knows how to find you.
Okay.
The best place to find you is on Instagram,
On
right?
Instagram,
You can
yes,
follow
sir.
Jennifer Lillian Wellness right
All
here on
one.
Instagram. All one on Instagram.
Yeah,
You also have a website
I
as
do.
well. I'll put that up here as well.
JenniferLillianWellness.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
And anything else that you want to share in terms of how people can reach you? Anything that might be helpful for those listening in terms of you do one-on-ones?
Yep.
You
So I
do some of the
do,
services you do?
I do one-on-one coaching. I offer a 6-month package.
Okay.
So, like I said, we meet weekly, roughly, for about an hour. And why 6 months? Because it takes about 3 months to really start to
Yeah.
shift the way that you think,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
and your beliefs. And then we spend the next 3 months reinforcing that as life happens,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people feel really good at that 3-month mark.
Yeah.
Then they go off on their own, and all the old habits
slips
and
back,
behaviors
yeah.
kind of slip back.
Yep.
So 6 months seems to be that sweet spot where we can really get transformation and then see it applied in more than one area of your
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
I like that. I'm a long-term guy too.
Yeah.
So as soon as you say 6 months, I'm like, wow, imagine where I'm going to be in August and September. You know what I mean?
Right.
I like that.
Well, and I think too, as a culture, we really want
yeah. All right. I was
quick
like,
fixes,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And I
right.
don't believe in quick fixes. I think we need to look at lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? We need to look at long-term, intentional living. So 6 months is kind of a minimum.
Yeah. Did I see as well? You do nutrition. You're a nutritionist as well.
I'm not a nutritionist.
Okay.
So I do, how I really got into this space, part of the progression was through Beachbody. So
Okay.
fitness, nutrition, supplements.
got you. So you-
I'm like a partner.
Yeah, you have
I
experience.
help people
Okay, gotcha,
there,
gotcha.
but
Yep.
I don't write meal
Gotcha.
plans. I don't do any of that stuff. I
Okay.
give you this resource, and I will support you and help with
Okay.
accountability
Yeah, gotcha.
and
It's like
community.
strategic partnership. Yeah.
Yes, but I'm not
Understood,
a
yeah.
nutritionist. Yes.
But no, well, that I think that's a good kind of place to leave it there in terms
Awesome.
of people know what to do, they know where to find you.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining
No,
this
thank
series.
you.
It's wonderful having you. I was expecting a good conversation with a life coach, but I'm not even gonna lie. Like while you were talking about the intentionality and focusing and all that, I was already feeling some of what I
Yeah.
assume you do for your clients. So I appreciate you coming
Job
through.
well done.
Again, thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you for having me.
Yeah,
This is great.
absolutely. Jen Evans, thank you
Yep.
for joining us.
Yeah.
That's it for week 23 of It's Business Time. Thank you all for hanging in there. And continue to enjoy your February. We only have one day left.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
It's business. It's business time.